Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your news edition. These are the headlines. France violates once again the diplomatic rules with discriminatory restrictions against Algerian diplomats and consuls, a targeted treatment that only concerns Algeria. The political crisis between Algeria and France reaches an unprecedented level. The balance of power has shifted in favor of Algeria, while the French government is suffering to see the Algerian regional and international influence. The barbaric and genocidal acts of the Zionist entity in Gaza are still ongoing. The occupying forces keep targeting Palestinian journalists just for doing their job. A new People's National Army Family Rest Center is inaugurated in Zemmouri in the first military region, a center with all the necessary accommodations to enjoy the holidays. Welcome back. France violates diplomatic rules with discriminatory restrictions against Algerian diplomats and consuls. This new procedure, imposed to access the restricted areas of the Parisian airports, directly hinders the recovery of diplomatic bags, which is guaranteed by international conventions. This targeted treatment only concerns Algeria and excludes its consular posts from a practice granted by law to foreign missions. Details with Daniel Bahri.
Once again, the fundamental rules governing diplomatic relations are being challenged. International conventions are clear. Diplomatic and consular missions must be able to carry out their duties freely, without interference, and with all the necessary facilities to operate effectively. Yet some new measures taken by France, described as temporary, impose unprecedented restrictions on accredited Algerian diplomats' access to secure airport areas. These restrictions directly hinder the delivery and collection of diplomatic bags, measures that run completely counter to the principles enshrined in the Vienna Convention and in bilateral agreements, particularly the right of an accredited representative to take direct possession of the pouch from the aircraft's captain. Moreover, these new measures are discriminatory, as they specifically target on one diplomatic mission only, and its consular posts ignore the principle of equal treatment for foreign representations on the same territory. Beyond the legal framework, common sense also raises questions, imposing heavy administrative procedures, rigid advance notice requirements, and even the constant presence of police escorts for a purely diplomatic act is rather an act of provocation than of cooperation. Mutual respect and reciprocity are the cornerstones of any balanced relationship between states. Violating these principles weakens not only trust, but the functions of diplomatic exchanges.
France's confrontational stance is undermining its ties with an increasingly independent Algeria that now holds stronger global alliances and greater strategic influence. Najah Tiyar with the details.
Plagued by deep political divisions and a struggling administration, France no longer holds the upper hand. Yet Paris persists in applying pressure on an Algeria that has decisively broken free from any form of dependency. Algeria needs France less than France needs Algeria, especially when it comes to gas and other resources. Other powers have understood this very well. The United States, for example, they don't have the same kind of complicated relationship with Algeria. Our interests are completely opposed to this kind of confrontation, so it needs to stop. The tone must be lowered. There is no reason not to have normal diplomatic relations again with Algeria, recognizing it as a sovereign power. As a pivotal player in African security, a critical barrier to unchecked immigration, and a key partner in counter-terrorism efforts, Algiers now sets the terms of engagement. The whole of Africa cannot stand Macron. They are horrified and exasperated by him. I often travel to Africa, or I'm invited there. For example, the creation of the Algerian Institute of Criminology. I know many people, and I have friends whose names come to mind, those who have always been present when needed. They were there during the fight against terrorism, providing a lot of intelligence and attending meetings on immigration within the African continent. I was there along with all the Algerian leaders who were present, as well as leaders from other countries with whom Algeria has good relations, they play a very important role in this. With French diplomacy widely seen as ineffective, Africa is increasingly distancing itself from Paris. You cannot isolate Algeria for a simple reason. Algeria's primary ally is Russia, with whom we are currently at odds. Its second ally is China. It has even recently moved closer to the United States, not to mention Italy and others. So we really have no chance to isolate it. We must also take into account Algeria's position in the global geopolitics. By continuing its confrontational approach, France risks alienating a reliable and strategic partner in the region. Meanwhile, Algeria has broadened its alliances and deepened cooperation with key international partners.
The genocide against the Palestinians is still ongoing in Gaza. The Zionist entity keeps targeting civilians waiting for humanitarian aid and also reporters for doing their job as they report the daily chaos suffered by the population of Gaza. This time, they accuse with no proof journalists like Anas Sharif to work with Hamas, only to deliberately murder him in total impunity. It's like the Zionist occupier is beyond international law. Anas and his colleagues worked in extreme conditions to raise the voice of the Palestinian people. Since October 7, 2023, the Zionist entity has murdered more than 200 Palestinian reporters in the Gaza Strip. May they rest in peace. In Gaza, the death toll continues to increase. No one is spared, not even reporters. Just last night, several journalists were killed while reporting the ground, including Anas Sharif, one of the region's most prominent correspondents. Since the beginning of the genocide, more than 200 Palestinian journalists have been killed. Details with Anil Bahri.
Under the rubble of small tent used as press post at the entrance of Shifa Hospital, one of the Gaza's last voices has fallen silent. On Sunday evening, Al Jazeera journalist Anas Sharif was killed in a targeted strike by the Zionist occupation forces. With him were fellow journalists Mohammed Qriqa, Ibrahim Zahir, Mu'min Alwa, Mohammed Naufel and Mohammed Al-Khalidi. They were covering the daily lives of Palestinians under siege when the missile hit. Raised under blockade and bombings, Anas chose journalism to break Gaza's silence. He quickly became one of the few voices reporting from the north, walking through destroyed streets and recording the destruction, hunger and fear.
يا أنس وصل رسالتي للعالم وصل رسالتي للعالم نحن نبات الآن نقصف.
His reports, made in dangerous conditions, brought fragments of truth to the world, stories the occupation wanted to silence. Anas leaves behind his wife Bayan and two children, Salah and Shams, who will never see him again.
إلا أنني مستمر في التغطية ولن أخرج من مخيم جباليا ولن أخرج من شمال القطاع. سأبقى لآخر نفس في هذه المنطقة إن شاء الله لأنقل لكم الصورة والحدث.
He had been on the army's target list for days, accused without evidence of working for Hamas, a claim used to justify another killing meant to hide the truth and cover past and future massacres. Since October 7, 2023, more than 200 Palestinian journalists have been killed in Gaza by the occupation forces. This grim toll surpasses global records in recent decades, a deliberate campaign turning silence into a weapon and journalism into a target.
Following the death of the Ministers of Defense and Environment and other high executives in a helicopter crash in the region of Ashanti, southern Ghana, the Minister of Communication, Mohamed Mziane, signed on Monday at the Embassy of the Republic of Ghana on the behalf of the Algerian government the condolence book, a message in which he expressed his sincere condolences and deep compassion, adding that Ghana lost real men who dedicated their life to serve their country and its interests with loyalty. The inauguration of the People's National Army Family Rest Center in Zemmouri, in the first military region, This Monday, the Army General Mustafa Ismaili, commander of the land forces, presided over the inauguration ceremony of this center on behalf of the Army General Saeed Changriha, Minister Delegate to the Minister of National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, and Jahtiyar with the details.
As part of strengthening and improvement of social services for the benefit of personnel of the Ministry of the National Defense and their dependents, and on behalf of the Army General Saeed Changriha, Delegate Minister to the Minister of the National Defense, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, the Army General Mustafa Ismaili, Commander of the Land Forces, chaired this Monday the inauguration ceremony of the People's National Army Family Rest Center in Zamuri, and the 1st Military Region. The inauguration ceremony took place in the presence of the commander of the 1st Military Region, the Central Director of the Social Service of the Ministry of the National Defense, as well as directors and heads of central services of the General Staff of the People's National Army and the Ministry of the National Defense. At the outset, the Army General reviewed a comprehensive presentation about the center before touring its various facilities, including the guest residence, the common area, as well as the sports and recreational facilities. At the conclusion, the Army General, Commander of the Land Forces, signed the center's guest book. The People's National Army Family Rest Center in Zamuri, located in Boumerdès province within the 1st Military Region, represents a new asset that strengthens the social infrastructure and reflects the High Command of the National People's Army's commitment to the social well-being of its personnel.
And with this, we come to the end of our edition. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Have a good night.